Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I am back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation that I've received over the last 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's no filter Q&A with question number one. Nick, why do some people train so hard and still look the same year after year? Well, you can train really hard in the gym, but if you don't have a game plan and you're not approaching your workouts methodically and you have no strategy, you're not going to get very far with your physique and your results, right? So everything you do in the gym, every workout you do, every set you do, every rep you do, every exercise you do, it has to have a strategy involved. It has to make sense. Okay. And I talk about this time and time again. You can't go into the gym and just say, wow, today I feel like doing barbell back squats and I'm going to do some bench press, I'm going to do some deadlifts, and that's it. And tomorrow I'm going to go in and just do some curls. And maybe the next day I'm just going to do some cardio. I mean, of course, you can do that and you can push yourself beyond your limits. You can squat till your nose bleeds. But if you're not putting together a training split that makes sense, and you're not working muscle groups that complement other muscle groups like agonist versus antagonist muscle groups, it's going to be very hard to create results with your physique. And I'll give you an idea. One of the things I don't like to do with people's programs, if I'm working with someone, let's say in the gym, or say I'm designing a training program for them online, and they're following, let's say, a 3-day training split, I'll typically give them a training program that looks something like chest and back day one, shoulders, biceps, triceps day two, hamstrings, quadriceps, calves, glutes day three. Okay, and I'll throw in abs in on one of those days. Um, that's the way I would design a 3-day plan. I would not design a 3-day plan saying, okay, well, today we're going to do chest and shoulders and triceps. Okay. And day two, we're going to do back and biceps. The reason I wouldn't structure a program like that is because if you're working your shoulders with your chest, you're already working, let's say you're starting off with chest, you're already working your anterior deltoids when you do a barbell bench press, when you do a dumbbell chest press, even when you do a dumbbell fly. So the time you get over to shoulders, let's say the second half of your workout, your anterior deltoids are going to be tired. So you're not going to work them to their fullest. Okay, so it wouldn't make sense to put shoulders with chest. The same can be said about putting triceps in that workout because any pressing movement you do, your synergist muscles are the triceps. So the time you get to triceps, which I would imagine would be at the very end of that workout, because it's the smallest muscle groups, you don't want to work the smaller muscle groups before the bigger muscle groups, your triceps are going to be fatigued. So it makes sense to put them on a separate day. The same reason why I say don't do back with biceps, because when you train your back, your biceps are the synergist muscle in any rowing movement you do, any pull down movement you do. Okay. So you don't want to exhaust your brachialis because the time you get over to training biceps, your biceps are going to be tired. So the workout has to make sense. Okay. So you can train as hard as you like, but if you're not putting together a program that's structured properly, it's going to be very difficult for you to really see results with your physique. Okay. So you're at that point, you're just spinning your wheels. So this is why I tell people it's important to have a game plan. All right. And I tell this to anyone, even if you're training only once a week, have a game plan. Know exactly what you're doing when you go into that gym. Which muscle groups are you training? Which exercises are you going to do? Are you going to go heavy today? Are you going to go lighter today? Are you going to take less rest? Are you going to take more rest? You're going to focus more on the eccentric contraction, the concentric contraction. So these are all things that you should be thinking about as you enter the gym, okay? Or even before you enter the gym, all right? So you know exactly what you're supposed to be training, okay? Obviously, you can make changes along the way, especially if you're dealing with a physical limitation or injury, or maybe you want a piece of equipment and it's in use, but you have to make sure your workout makes sense, okay? Or otherwise, like I said, you're just spinning your wheels. Okay. Nick, is fat loss actually harder for people who are already lean but want to lose a bit of body fat still? Yes, absolutely. The leaner you get, the harder it gets to lose fat. Okay. And I've had this conversation with so many clients over the years. The thing is, when a lot of people start working out, and let's say their body fat's quite high, and say you're working with a man whose body fat's at 40%, I can get that man to do 20 minutes of brisk walking a day, not even touch his diet, and he'll drop 2 pounds within the first week. Because for that man to exert that much energy for 20 minutes of walking is going to take a lot out of him to do that. So he's going to be burning more calories. But if that same man continues for 6 months and starts losing weight more and more, 2 pounds a week, 3 pounds a week, and the body fat starts going down from 40% to 35% to 28% to 20% to 16% to 12%, it gets harder to lose body fat. Right? Because there's less body fat to lose. And now to do that same 20-minute walk, piece of cake, right? So you're not exerting as much energy, right? So unfortunately, the more fit you become, the harder it becomes to dial in your physique more and more. Okay. And this is why when you look at bodybuilders or bikini competitors, physique competitors, they have to really suffer a lot of times to get their body fat down to those single digits, like for men, 3 to 5%, for women, 12 to 14%, because they're already in excellent shape. Compared to the average sedentary person, they're in amazing shape, like Greek god physique. But when you're training with the best, or I should say, competing with the best of the world, your body fat needs to be crazy low. You need to have striations in your glutes, right? You need to be able to see all those muscle fibers, right? So it's so important that you know this because I have a lot of people that get frustrated and go, oh my God, I'm doing everything I possibly can. I'm like, well, you know what? We're going to have to do a little bit more. And whether that means we're going to have to either decrease your calories or we're going to have to increase your cardiovascular activity, we're going to have to do one or the other. Okay. And that's why I say it's not like brain surgery here. All right. It's not that complicated, but a lot of people online try to overcomplicate it. And it really just comes down to knowing your body, whether you're an endomorph, an ectomorph, a mesomorph. Okay. Understanding what your physical limitations are, what your mental limitations are. Because let's face it, not everyone wants to be in the gym 6, 7 days a week. So if you know, hey, I can commit to 3 to 5 days a week in the gym, that's great. But you also have to have realistic expectations and manage your expectations accordingly and say, well, if I'm in the gym 3 to 5 times a week, I'm probably not going to look like Mr. Olympia, but I can get my body fat down to low digits. And maybe you're someone who actually does like to have 2 or 3 cheat meals a week. Well, okay, well then maybe your body fat's not going to be 8% if you're a guy. Maybe it's going to be 12%. That's okay. But as long as you manage your expectations, okay, and that's important because I think a lot of people have unrealistic expectations and they don't realize the amount of time, effort, and energy it takes to really dial your physique in. All right. And so, yeah, the leaner you become, the harder it is to lose body fat. Because again, I'll reiterate this fact. The heavier someone is, as in more body fat, that person, let's say you take someone who's 290 pounds and they're at 48% body fat. For that person just to go up a flight of stairs, they have to exert so much more energy than someone like myself who is sitting around probably 10% body fat at 200 pounds. For me to walk up a flight of stairs, nothing. I don't even think anything of it, right? So I'm going to burn in that case of going up a flight of stairs, 2 calories maybe. Whereas someone else is like someone who's that overweight, they could easily burn 50 to 60 calories, right? So of course they're going to lose weight faster, okay? But don't let that frustrate you. Just keep that in mind. I always compare it to school, right? As you keep going up a year, you start in kindergarten, right? And you go up grade one, grade two, grade three, you go to high school, college, so on. It gets harder. It doesn't get easier. So same thing. The more advanced you become, the harder it becomes. Okay. But you have to stay focused and you have to, this goes back to that first question. You have to have a strategy, you have to have a game plan, and you have to approach your workouts and your diet methodically and intelligently. Okay. And that's how you're going to continuously get results with your health and your physique, regardless of how lean you become. All right. Nick, what's the one exercise most people are wasting time on? I don't know if there's one specific exercise that people are wasting their time on, but there's a lot of exercises that I call fluff exercises. Exercises to me that are not necessarily a waste of time, but they're not really adding much value to your physique, especially if you're someone who has limited time in the gym or you're only in the gym 2, 3 times a week. If you're someone who is on a tight schedule or you're only training 2 to 3 times a week, you should be focusing primarily on your compound exercises. And I talked about this last week on the channel, how you want to focus on the exercises that give you more bang for your buck, the exercises that will help you build more muscle, that will help you burn more body fat, that help makes you exert more energy. Okay, so exercises like the bench press, the barbell back squats, deadlifts. These are all exercises that require a lot of mental focus, but a lot of physical exertion as well. So if you are someone who's limited on time, you don't want to be focusing on exercises that are necessarily painting your house. You want to be focusing on the exercises that are building your house. Okay. Now, if you're someone like me who's in the gym 6, 7 days a week, you can focus on a combination of the exercises that are going to build your house and the exercises that are going to paint your house. And the more advanced become with your training, years and years and years, you can start adding in those exercises that work on every little detail. All right. So I'll give you a perfect example is that if you are someone who is a beginner and you're working out 3 days a week in the gym, you're going to get much more benefits from focusing on exercises like the barbell back squat than you ever will from playing on a Smith machine or doing leg extensions on a machine. Okay. Because the barbell back squat, you're going to build more muscle. You're working multiple muscle groups. You're working your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes. It's not an isolation exercise. There's nothing wrong with leg extensions. There's nothing wrong with Smith machine, but those are exercises that I would only add into someone's routine if they are in the gym maybe 5, 6 times a week. And okay, now we're actually trying to bring in a little bit more striations in your quads, or we're just trying to break up that muscle group a little bit, give it a little bit more separation in your hamstrings, whatever it may be. Okay. So it's not that it's one particular exercise or that I think any exercises are a waste of time because I think all exercises have their benefits. And let's face it, exercising in general is going to be better than not exercising at all, right? So if you're going to the gym and doing any exercise, it's going to be better than sitting on your couch and eating a bag of potato chips. So I wouldn't say that there's a waste of time doing exercise or that this exercise is overrated, but I would suggest that if you are new to the gym or if you are limited on time or limited on resources, to stick to the bread and butter. I don't mean the food, the compound exercises, okay? The ones that are going to help you build real muscle density. All right. And I'm not talking about big bodybuilder muscle density. I'm talking about solid, lean muscle bellies. Okay. So those compound exercises are going to help immensely with your physique in the gym, also with your performance, your overall strength, your health, and your well being. All right. So again, I'm not going to sit here and say, don't do this exercise, do this exercise. No. But I am going to tell you this that if you are someone who is going to the gym, 2, 3 times a week. Focus on the more bang for your buck exercises. The exercises are going to help you build solid, lean, dense muscle. Okay. Barbell back squats, barbell deadlifts, barbell bench press, bent over barbell rows, T-bar rows, walking lunges. Okay. All these exercises are a foundation for building a solid physique. Okay. Nick, do you ever have to tell a client that they are under eating and accidentally killing their progress in the gym? Yeah, more often than not. And it's usually more often than not, I have to have this conversation with women more than men. Okay. Because a lot of women are under the impression that for them to get super lean, they should be really dieting down and watching their calories and bringing their calories down super low. And I've talked about in the past how I don't count calories. Okay. I count macronutrients. And if I'm working with someone who I've never worked with before, it usually takes me 2 to 4 weeks to learn how their body's going to react to the diet that I'm putting them on. And what I mean by that is this person going to be very sensitive to carbohydrates? Do I need to back off the carbohydrates, give them more fats? Or is this person like an ectomorph and I can give them tons of carbohydrates, like myself? I can have tons of carbohydrates and it doesn't affect my waistline whatsoever. But I have some clients, both men and women on my roster, they look at a carb, they put on weight. So you have to understand the body type that you are before you put down a diet plan for somebody. But the problem is a lot of people, and I don't want to just single out women here because there are guys like this too, but I've had this conversation with tons of my female clients over the years. I'm like, you're not eating enough. And like, well, I'm trying to lose weight. I'm like, I understand that. But the problem is you're not eating enough of the good foods. You're eating too much of the bad foods. You're having refined carbohydrates. You're having simple carbohydrates. You're having trans fats, right? You're having fatty protein sources as opposed to lean protein sources. So yes, we're going to give you more volume as far as food portions control is concerned, but we're actually reducing your overall intake because a lot of these smaller portion foods, like pasta, for example, I'm not saying pasta is bad, but pasta is very calorically dense. So I'd much rather have someone have a bowl of rice and chicken breasts as opposed to a bowl of pasta, okay? Because they're going to get their lean protein source in with a complex carbohydrate. So it's understanding the right foods and making sure that you're feeding your body enough for what you're doing. All right. And I have had this conversation with men before as well, because a lot of times, especially guys who are dieting for a show or dieting, maybe I have some guys who are really trying to bring their waist down and they start doing intermittent fasting. And I say, look, from a health component, I don't have a problem with intermittent fasting. I think intermittent fasting is excellent. All right. Keeps the body in an alkaline state. I've talked about this in the past. However, for building muscle and losing body fat, it's not an ideal diet to follow. Okay. And I've talked about this numerous times. So I'm not going to go into intermittent fasting on this episode, but I will say this. When you are trying to build muscle, you need to feed muscle. You need to give it lean protein. You need to give it complex carbohydrates, and you need to give it healthy fats. Yes, you need to give it all three. Okay. So if you're not doing that, it's going to be very hard to build muscle. Okay. So if you're under eating, as in you're not getting enough protein, how the hell are you going to build muscle? You're actually, your body's going to go into a catabolic state. Can I understand it's really difficult for a lot of people to get their head around that, especially people who struggled with their weight their whole life. I have a lot of people come work with me who've, they've struggled with their weight. They've been overweight their whole life. And like they fear food, as in like the more food they have, they're going to continuously gain weight. And I say, no, you have to change your mindset with food. And as opposed to restricting food, you need to focus more on giving yourself the right types of food. All right. Because if you're feeding yourself the right types of food, you can have lots of food and you won't put on weight. Okay. If anything, your body's going to utilize that food if it's the right food, and it's going to put it towards your workouts. All right. So it's going to allow you to build muscle and put your body in what we call an anabolic state. All right. So yes, I've had this conversation more often than not with women, but I've had it with a few of my guys as well. And there is a little bit, it's more of a psychological uh, fix that we need to do with people like that. And so a lot of times when I work with someone on a weight loss plan, and I talked about this before, they're always shocked by how much food I give them. And they're like, "Are you crazy? I'm trying to lose weight and you're giving me more food than I'm already consuming." I'm like, "Trust me, just eat it." And it always works because these people are not eating what we call clean foods, right? They're eating junk food. They're eating processed food. And so once we start cleaning up the diet, your body starts utilizing those macronutrients. Hell, it's even utilizing those calories, whatever, to help you build muscle in the gym and help you lose fat outside the gym. Okay, so it's just a mindset switch. And like I said, that takes a little longer for some people over others. But once people understand, and that's the whole thing is like when I work with someone on their nutritional plan, that's why I really try my best not to use the word diet, because I think diet has all these negative thoughts with it, right? Whereas if you think nutritional plan, it's like, okay, we're actually going to create something that is sustainable, because if it's sustainable, it's going to be successful. Whereas a diet, people are thinking, oh, I'm going to restrict this. I'm going to feel like garbage. I'm going to have no energy. I'm going to miss out on all the foods I enjoy. And that's true. So if you can change your mindset and think, no, no, I'm going to start fueling my body properly so I feel better. And so I perform better in the gym and just overall in life. I have tons of energy. I feel good. I look good. That's what we want to create. And usually it's just a mind shift for people, and it doesn't happen overnight. Hell, for some of my clients, that doesn't even happen within 6 months to a year. It takes time. But once they see the results that they're achieving with their physique, like, okay, I get it. Okay, I understand now what Nick's trying to do with my diet. Go ahead, design my diet for me. I'll do whatever you say. And I have a lot of people like that who worked with me for years on their diet and they do not change it. They want me just to do their diet for them, make their revisions on a weekly basis. And that's what I do. Because a lot of people have an unhealthy relationship with food, and I get it. So it's important to kind of shift your mindset, create a healthy relationship with food, still allow yourself to have those bad foods, right? If you want to have a piece of cheesecake, or if you want to have a burger, you want to have some fries, a slice of pizza, whatever it may be, have it. But again, it comes down to moderation, right? So again, in my experience, yes, there are people out there who undereat. In my experience, though, again, there's more people that overeat, especially here in North America. But it is a get it's a struggle for a lot of people to kind of get over that hump and think that they have to eat more food in order to build more muscle and to actually lose more body fat. But working with the right coach can guide you in the right direction. All right. Okay. Nick, do you really need rest days, or is that just an excuse? I feel like I can work out every day. If you honestly feel that you can work out every day, work out every day. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you're under training or you're not training hard enough, okay? Or you're not using enough intensity in your workouts because I'm someone who trains every day and I lift crazy heavy weights in the gym. Not like I'm not lifting Ronnie Coleman weights, but I mean, at 40 years old, I'm still squatting 315. I'm still bench pressing 225. I'm doing these for reps, okay? And I feel great. And the reason I feel that I don't need a rest day, I mean, if I need a rest day, I'll take it. And sometimes when I take a rest day, 9 times out of 10, it's because I literally do not have a time slot in my day to fit in a workout. Okay, whether it's with personal obligations or whether it's with the business obligations, whatever it may be, and I can't fit that workout in. But to me, that's an excuse because there is 24 hours in a day. So I always find some slot, even if it's 40 minutes to fit in a workout. Okay. But I honestly feel like I can work out every day. And I used to fall victim to the thought that, oh, it's important to take at least one day off from the gym. But, I started to question, especially as I got older, I started to question that. I'm like, well, who says this? Who's setting up these rules? Because you have to understand that these rules are rules in general are meant to be broken, not laws, but rules. So these so-called rules, you have to take a rest day or you should train 2 days on, 1 day off. I'm like, says who? Because again, we're all different, right? We all have different bodies. We all have different lifestyles. So for me, I'm in the gym anyway, and I'm like, I love training. So I'm like, yeah, you know what? I've worked out every day. I feel great. If I need a break, if I physically need a break, if I mentally need a break, I take it. Can I tell the same thing to a lot of my clients who love the gym? I say, that's fine. You can work out every day. Just make sure that you're not doing the same shit every day. Okay. So that means that you're not squatting 3 times a week. You're not bench pressing 3 times a week. And I've talked about this time and time again. I don't even care if you have a weak muscle group. You're not hitting it 3, 4 times a week. You're following a training split. You're doing at least a 5 day rotation where you have different muscle groups. All right. Sometimes even a 6 day rotation for some people. They want to have 2 leg days, 2 back days, whatever. But like I said, those leg days better be quads 1 day, hamstrings, glutes, calves the next day. Those back day better be a row day and a pull down day. So you're not doing the exact same muscles. You might do the same muscle group, but not the exact same muscles in the muscle group. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to tell you, and I know it's not a popular opinion, but if you truly feel like you don't need a rest day, don't take it. Just watch for overtraining, watch for burnout, both mental and physical. All right. Watch for any joint pain. If you start to experience any of that, you might want to back off a little bit. All right. And just make sure that your diet is dialed in. And that is so important because here's a big problem. And this goes back to that other question about under eating. If you're under eating and you're training every day, you are seriously at risk of overtraining. Okay, you're going to fry out your adrenal glands. So you have to make sure that you're fueling your body properly if you're asking it to do that much exercise. All right, because at that point, you're pretty much an athlete. And athletes need to eat to perform. All right. So if you're in the gym every day like me, you need to eat. How much? Well, that'll depend on multiple factors: age, gender, lifestyle, what your workout split looks like. Are you in the gym for 30 minutes? Are you in the gym for an hour? Are you doing cardio every day? So obviously, you have to tweak the diet depending on all those factors, but you need to make sure you are fueling your body properly. All right. Okay. Nick, do you think that social media has completely destroyed good old-fashioned training? Yes and no. I mean, there's numerous benefits to social media, and I'd be a huge hypocrite here if I said social media doesn't belong in the gym because I utilize social media to market my services, both inside the gym and outside the gym. I've filmed workouts. I filmed myself in the kitchen. I've done tons and tons and tons of live feeds. I've done posts. I've done videos on training, on diet while I'm training, so on. So for me, social media has been a huge asset. All right. But this is also my profession. If I was not a trainer or an online coach, I wouldn't be filming anything in the gym. You would never see a selfie. You would never see a training video, nothing. Okay. Because the only reason I use social media, the only reason is to market my services. It's not to stroke my ego. Okay. And I'm not saying that everyone that's in the gym that's not a trainer is trying to stroke their ego or they're looking for validation from others. I mean, some are, but I just don't see the purpose if you are someone who is not trying to benefit from this for your business as to why you would be using it in the gym. I don't. I have zero idea why people are in the gym taking selfies. I don't know. Because to me, it still is a distraction. And when I have filmed my workouts or I filmed an exercise or I'm doing a tutorial, I do find it a bit of a distraction. So I try to do it in one take, get it out of the way, and move on. All right. Because honestly, it does for me. I find it's a huge distraction. If I'm squatting that 315, and I filmed this before on my Instagram tons of times, I do find the setup, everything. Yes, it's not time consuming, but it is a distraction because it's taking away my mental focus from getting under that bar. All right. Would it be easier if someone was there to record me? Maybe. But at the same time, I also know back in my head, oh, someone's recording me. This has got to be perfect. I like, all these things are in the back of my mind. I have a distraction because now someone's filming me, or they might want a certain angle, and I don't want to do that angle. I want to squat the way I want to squat. All right. So I feel that social media, there's good and bad, right? But like I said, when I retire, which who knows when that's going to be, you will not see a single post video or a tutorial video from me in the gym at all because it serves no benefits to me at that point. For now, it's helping me get my brand out there, helping me get my name out there for people who want to look for an online coach or trainer. They want to see someone who's reputable, who's someone's in relatively decent shape, who takes care of themselves. Social media has been a huge asset for my business, okay, especially Instagram. So it's something that I'm not going to sit here and say, oh no, it's garbage because I can see the benefits. But again, I can only see the benefits for those that work in the fitness industry. If you don't work in the fitness industry, I have zero clue as to why you're filming yourself workout. I don't know. And maybe it's just maybe for yourself. If that's fine. There's some people that want to record themselves. I've seen that, so they can just go back and assess their form and technique. I get that. But for those that post it online and on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook. I do think a lot of times they're doing it for the validation, and to get a bit of a ego stroke, but they might tell you different. So, I mean, whatever. If you want to use it, use it. But I do feel that it can be a distraction for many. And I feel that if you are serious about achieving results with your physique, you might want to leave that phone in your pocket as opposed to bringing it out and putting it on a tripod and filming your workout. All right. Okay. Nick, why do some strong people look so unimpressive with their bodies? Okay, so if you look at a power lifter, right? And I've talked about power lifters in the past. Power lifters, most of them, friggin' strong, right? You got guys who are friggin' deadlifting, 1,000 pounds. You got people who are squatting 800 pounds. I mean, I couldn't even imagine getting under a bar and squatting 800 pounds. But a lot of these same people have big bellies, right? They have thick arms. They don't have really any veins in their arms. They have no definition in their arms. And this is not a knock on those people, but you have to remember that is not what their sport is. That is not what they are training for. They're not training for the aesthetics. They're training for pure raw strength and power. All right. And so a lot of people who are, like you said, they're very strong in the gym, they don't really have impressive looking physiques because they're not trying to build their physiques like that. They're not sculpting their physiques. When I look at my physique, I'm like, I could use a little bit more cap in my shoulders. I could use a little bit um, more size in my chest, right? But I want to make sure that every ounce of muscle that I add on is quality. And I'm not just adding on muscle for the sake of muscle because then you just look like a fridge, right? So a bodybuilder goes into the gym and they think of it more like an art. Like you're an artist. You're creating a sculpture, clay sculpture. You're creating a sculpture. So you're trying to create caps in your delts. You're trying to create wider lats. You're trying to create a more impressive chest. You're trying to create peaks in your bicep. It's not just let's just add on a bunch of muscle because that can look, in my opinion, kind of sloppy. And I'm not suggesting that powerlifters look sloppy. I'm just saying that there's a function for that sport, and that is to lift the weight up and down. That's it. It's pure raw strength and power. That's what they're competing for. Who can lift the most amount of weights, right? It's the same thing when you look at those Olympic lifters. They're not necessarily looking like a professional bodybuilder because that is not what their sport is, right? So they're not chasing the aesthetics. They're chasing more of the performance. They're chasing more of the power. They're chasing more of the strength, and that's fine. Okay, so I know a lot of powerlifters and a lot of CrossFitters. They get a bad rep because people, well, you don't even look like you work out. But you have to remember that's not what they're going to the gym for. Someone like myself, I'll be completely honest, what got me into the gym was pure vanity. I wanted to look good when I was younger. That was it. I wanted to look good for the girls. And fast forward 25 years later, I now know that girls don't give two shits if you work out or not. Okay. But back then, I thought, hey, that's how you get girls. You're gonna be. Big muscles, chiseled abs, works. Not really. It doesn't. If anything, when you build a physique like that, you get more compliments from the men than you do from the women. So it's not a reason for me to go to the gym anymore, but I like bodybuilding. I like sculpting my physique. I like feeling good and looking good in my body, but that's also my goal. So I don't really think of bodybuilding as a sport. I think of it more as like a pageant, and you're just trying to do create that art. So you're an artist trying to create your art. Okay. And that's the way I've always gone into the gym for the past now 20 years. Okay. Not those first 5 years where I was just chasing size and vanity for the girls. But now I understand. I'm like, no, no, now I really want to just build a physique that I'm proud of, that I can feel good if I take my shirt off at the beach and I don't have to worry about a gut or any of that. Right. So a little bit of vanity is okay. So I wouldn't necessarily say that powerlifters or strongmen or strong women are unimpressive because they are impressive. Do they have impressive physiques? Maybe not. No. But again, that's not their goal. So we shouldn't knock on them for that. All right. They can still lift pretty heavy weight. And I'll tell you what, it's still pretty damn impressive when I see a guy or a girl squatting like 400 or 500 pounds. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's impressive to me. Would I want to do that? No. Would I want to look like I could do that? Maybe, as long as I'm not getting too big, as in like I just don't have any definition. But to me, I've never chased the size game and I've never really chased the strength game. I could really care less how much I lift in the gym. I've always said I'd rather look like I could lift 1,000 pounds than actually lift 1,000 pounds. That's just me though. I've always chased the aesthetics, and most people that I work with are chasing the aesthetics and the health, not the strength, not the power. That's not important to them. Not the one rep max. All right. Is that it? Oh no, we got one more question. All right, one more question quickly. Okay. Nick, if you had to start over today, what would you stop doing immediately in the gym and with your diet? Um, I wouldn't stop doing anything in the gym because every mistake that I've made in the gym, I've learned something from. Right? I remember when I first started lifting weights, and I've talked about this in the past, how I would read the Arnold Schwarzenegger Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding front to back. I know that whole book front to back because I've read it at least a dozen times. And I would take those exercises and I would add them to my routine. And then what I kept doing was adding more and more exercises to my routine. And I was spending like 2 or 3 hours in the gym. But looking back at that now, I wouldn't say that was a mistake. I mean, was it a mistake for my progress? Yeah, probably. I was probably overtraining because I was in the gym for like 2 or 3 hours. But doing those exercises time and time again, it allowed me to learn how to do them because I was adding them into my gym. I was doing practical use, right? It wasn't just theory. It was all practical. Theory was in the book, and I'd go put it to use. A lot of these trainers these days, they just read something from a book or they just watch something on YouTube and they don't actually put it to use. They just let their client do it. So I was allowed to say, okay, how does this feel on this angle? How does this feel if I do it this way? And what if a guy has longer arms? What if a woman has shorter arms? How does it work? And so I was able to tweak exercises by doing those exercises, by spending 3 or 4 hours in the gym training. I didn't think I was going to become a personal trainer or coach, but I was pretty much getting myself ready to do that because I was teaching myself these exercises. And that really helped. So I wouldn't say that was a waste of time because I attribute a lot of what I did in my early years to why I've become so popular and so busy as an online coach and trainer now with a full roster is because I have done it myself. I'm not just someone that says, do as I say. Every exercise that I ask a client to do, I've done. So I know exactly how it feels. And I know if an exercise is bothering someone, which alternative exercise to give them. Because at some point, maybe I myself was having a problem with that exercise. I'm like, you know what? This is what I did. Or this is what I did with another client. So I have all that experience. So I wouldn't take that back, honestly. So as far as the gym's concerned, nothing. Because even though I made mistakes, I made a lot of mistakes, tons of mistakes. I wouldn't take them back because they all helped me learn how to become a better trainer, how to become a better coach. So that was the learning ground for me and taught me the skill set to apply to my own clients' workouts and their diets. Talking about diet, when you think about the mistakes I made with my diet, oh man, tons. And if I could go back now, that's one thing I would change was especially from the beginning because I didn't understand dietary nutrition. Back when I started, yeah, the internet was around, but I didn't have access to it. So you couldn't just go Google and say, what should I be eating? You had to kind of talk to the guys in the gym. And a lot of the guys I worked out with were old school bodybuilders who they knew a lot about training, but they didn't know much about diet. I mean, these guys still drank milk and ate bread. So I didn't really get much information from them, or the information I did get from them wasn't helping me. So, as far as the diet is concerned, I think I was probably under eating and not eating the right foods. And that really affected or impacted my progress for those first 5, 6 years of training. And it wasn't until I was probably about 20 where I really started to take an interest in dietary nutrition. And that's when I saw the greatest changes in my physique between the ages of 20 and 25 is all to do with my diet. Because back in the day, I would follow the bro science diet, which was the bro at the gym would say, well, go have a protein shake after your workout. I did that for 5 years. I didn't see anything, nothing. And then I started to learn about dietary nutrition and say, well, your body will utilize whole foods much better than powders. So I got rid of the post-workout shake and I started doing chicken and rice. You know what? It worked. My body was now utilizing those nutrients. So it's not that I'm against protein powder. I still use protein powder, but I was willing to, again, break the rules and say, you know what? I don't need this post-workout shake bullshit. Let me try something different because what I'm doing right now is not working. And I really encourage anyone, if you're doing something in the gym or anything in life and it's not working, don't keep doing it and expecting a different result because that really is the definition of insanity, right? So don't be afraid to change it and try something new. Even if it's something completely out of the box, try it and see. I always tell you, try it. You never know. Maybe this will work for you. Maybe you can eat white bread and have six pack. Maybe doubtful, but you could, right? So I'm not saying like just because I say something, you have to do what I say. I always tell clients like try it and see. But I had to do what worked for me. And so if I could go back in time now, when it goes to my diet, I would make a lot of changes. Okay. And it all starts with number one, cooking my own meals. Because back then I used to grab a lot of takeout. I worked in restaurants, so I would just eat the restaurant food. And I worked in a Greek restaurant, so I'd be eating Greek food, which is terrible for you. I mean, no offense to people who eat Greek food, but I mean, especially restaurant Greek food, it's terrible. It's full of like fried rice and full of like calamari, and you have all these like the oils on top that are like slathered in canola oil and all this garbage. And that wasn't helping me make gains in the gym. All right. So when I cleaned up my diet, that's when I noticed those changes, and they were great changes. They were immediate. Like within like 2 weeks, I started to notice changes. My waist got smaller, my arms got bigger. I got more definition in my pecs and my delts and my back. I got stronger in the gym, and it all had to do with my diet. So if I could have made that change 5 years earlier in my career, who knows? I maybe would have progressed even better. But as far as the gym is concerned and training, I wouldn't change anything because everything I did from overtraining, from spending 2, 3 hours in the gym, hell, sometimes even four if I do two workouts. I used to do two workouts, one in the morning, one at night. It taught me everything that I apply to my clients today with their workouts. And if they're dealing with a physical limitation or injury, I know how to troubleshoot. Okay. So I attribute to what I did back then to why I've been able to help so many people now. And I'm very lucky to do that. And people do trust me with their health and they trust me with helping them make transformations with their physique. And that's huge. And I really do appreciate that. So it's something I take seriously and it's something that I wouldn't change. Okay. Even if it affected me in a negative way, like physique wise at the time, I wouldn't change it because it helped me become a better trainer and a better coach. Anyway, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going up on Monday, December the 29th. As a reminder, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me at nick@foreverfitpromos.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for supporting my YouTube channel, my online coaching business, as well as my in-house personal training business here in Vancouver, British Columbia. I truly do appreciate all the support and all the feedback that I receive from each and every single one of you. And I also want to wish everyone a happy new year and the absolute best in 2026. The next time I will be on the Q&A, we will be in the new year. So for now, I will see you all next year. Thank you all again, and bye for now.